Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Crawford County Bar Association, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I want to thank all our candidates. All 8 appellate court candidates are here, and I just want to say a big thank you to them. A lot of them had to drive many hours to get here. We know the drive to Philadelphia can be long, and we thank you all for making it to come to visit our corner of the state. Now, for those of you watching at home, we are hosting all 8 appellate court candidates here for the fall election. Our appellate courts in Pennsylvania have a long and storied history. In fact, our Supreme Court does make the claim to being the oldest and longest operating Supreme Court in the entire nation, despite what the people of Massachusetts may tell you. Our Supreme Court is comprised of 7 justices. Our Superior Court has 15 seats for judges, and our Commonwealth Court is a specialty court. It's smaller and hears cases specially designed, primarily those where the state or a township, municipality, a county is a party to the litigation. Today we have 2 candidates for Supreme Court, 4 candidates for Superior Court, and 2 candidates for the Commonwealth Court. This is an important decision that Pennsylvanians make about every 2 years. These judges will shape policy, shape legal precedents that will impact Pennsylvanians for decades to come. That's why it is so important to have events like this, so that the candidates can get out, meet the people in their field, address people at home, and frankly communicate their vision for how they will execute their office, how they will make decisions in the future. With that said, we will start having the candidates address everybody. You're here for them, not for me. We are going to go in order of the ballots. So Supreme Court first, Superior Court, and then Commonwealth Court. Now, in Pennsylvania, it does have a weird kind of election law where the party in control of the governor's mansion is the party that goes to the top of the ballot, is listed at the top of the ballot, which is why we honor that order here in terms of speaking. So that is why you'll see the Democratic candidates speaking ahead of the Republican candidates for all the offices today. So with that said, I'm going to hand things over to Attorney Brian Cagle. He is going to do our first introduction today, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. It's my pleasure to introduce Judge Daniel McCaffrey. Judge McCaffrey is the son of Irish immigrants, a printer and a school custodian, I believe. I didn't write that down. I think I remember that. Judge McCaffrey joined the U.S. Army when he was 18 after high school, and he served on active duty with the 1st Cavalry Division. After receiving an honorable discharge, Judge McCaffrey attended Temple University and then Temple University School of Law. He started his legal career as an assistant district attorney in Philadelphia, where he worked in the major trials unit. During his 6 years as an assistant district attorney, he prosecuted more than 50 jury trials and 1,000 bench trials. In 1997, Judge McCaffrey joined the law firm of Friedman Schumann. He practiced there for 16 years as a civil trial attorney and chaired the firm's commercial litigation department. He was then elected to be a judge on the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas in 2013, where he presided over thousands of cases. In 2020, Judge McCaffrey was appointed by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to sit on the Court of Judicial Discipline, which is a court that hears charges against judicial officers. Also in 2020, he was elected to the Pennsylvania Superior Court, where he currently sits today, when he's not sitting in here with us. Judge McCaffrey is currently the only military veteran serving on any of Pennsylvania's appellate courts. He is the, I assume, proud father of 2 daughters, and very proud father of 2 daughters. Pennsylvania Bar Association's Judicial Evaluation Commission rated Judge McCaffrey as highly recommended because of his broad experience as a practicing attorney, proven record of judicial leadership, and high ethical standards and dedication to the legal profession and the community. So please join me in welcoming Judge McCaffrey.
Done. Brian kind of stole my thunder. Thank you, though. I really appreciate that. I'm Judge Dan McCaffrey of Pennsylvania Superior Court, and I want to thank you all for coming out. Everybody always thanks us when we walk into the room and say thank you for coming up to a small little Crawford County. But as I told everybody when I walked in the room, this is about my 6th or 7th time in Crawford County over the last 3 or 4 months, because we've been making the rounds, and it really is wonderful to be back up here in Crawford County in northwestern Pennsylvania. The beauty of running for judge or justice in this particular case around Pennsylvania is that you kind of get out and you get to meet different members of the bar in different sections of the state, and you get to kind of identify the areas of law, the burgeoning areas of law, and what's important to the members of the bar. And I think when you're talking about judges on the appellate courts, and I think you're talking about justices on the appellate courts, what you're really talking about is a lifetime of experience. And that's what I really want to talk about today, which is my experience, and Brian kind of alluded to it. It's not just the experience that people bring to these particular benches, and we've got wonderful candidates on both sides of the aisle here. It's really the values that we bring as judges to a particular case. Brian alluded to the fact that, you know, I didn't just drive up here from Philadelphia County. My parents are actually from a place far, far, far away, and it's a place called Belfast, Northern Ireland. And I like to tell people this story to start off because I think it's important for you to understand why I'm standing here, and not just about the particular job. It's about the values that we bring to this particular campaign. My mother and father are Irish Catholics from Belfast, Northern Ireland. My father was born in 1928. My mother was born in 1929. And I tell people that because Catholics in Northern Ireland are a very disadvantaged minority. Growing up, my father went to the 8th grade. He was the highly educated one in his family. He was the oldest of 14. My mother was an orphan. She dropped out of school at the age of 12 years old, 3rd grade, to really start off working in the mills. But my father had a particular skill that took him very far in life. You see, my father's skill was that he was very good with his fists, and I can attest to that by the lumps on my head. You see, my father was an All-Ireland boxing champion. He started boxing at the age of 13. He fought until he was a champion at 16. He turned pro, and he was such a good champion that my father was given an opportunity that not many of his contemporaries were given. And it's going to sound funny to people in this particular room, but the opportunity my dad was given was the opportunity to work. He was given a trade. He was offered a job by a Protestant who owned a printing company to develop a trade as a printer. And my father quickly snapped up that opportunity. And he developed a trade, and he was so proud of himself. He went out and he proposed to my mother. They got married at 16 and 15, and by the time they were 21, they had 3 children. My sister Molly, my brother Seamus, and my brother Noel. The 21st year of my father's apprentice, or life, 4 years of an apprenticeship, my father came back to his place of business, and his cubicle where he worked every day was decorated. And it wasn't decorated with Happy Birthday Seamus. It was decorated with God Save the Queen, Union Jacks. Now, imagine, if you will, for a second, if you're Jewish and you come back to your place of employment and you see swastikas painted on your wall, or if you're African American and you come back and you see a noose hanging on your wall. You might react the way my father reacted, which is to strip down and rip down this offensive material and throw it in the trash. My father turned around and he was confronted by his 4 coworkers. These were men who worked with him every single day for the past 4 years. And they promptly held my father down and they beat him into a coma. When my father woke up 30 days later, he was fired from his job for fighting. He lost his opportunity to fight and continue to fight as a boxer. And he looked at my mother and he looked at his 3 children and he realized that in Belfast, Northern Ireland, there was not an opportunity for him to raise his family and practice his religion the way he wanted to give his children the opportunities that he was denied as an Irish Catholic. So he did what all of our ancestors did. He got on a boat and he came to this country to make a better life for him and his family. As my mother and father said, I'm the youngest of 7, and my mother and father lived the American dream. My father became a printer and an organizer for the communication workers in Philadelphia. My mother became a custodial worker. You got that right, Brian. You're right on the money there. My mom was a custodial worker, cleaning bathrooms, cleaning toilets in the city of Philadelphia schools for 26 years before she retired as a retiree from SEIU. But my mom and dad lived that American dream. Every single one of their children went on through high school, went on through college degrees. 3 of us have advanced degrees, and I'm standing here 1 step away from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. My mother and father, the values that they instilled in us were the values of service to our country, service to our city, and service to their community. because as I tell people all the time, my mom and dad told everybody, it's important because America is their adopted homeland, but America is your home. And it's important that you give back to your community. So at the age of 18, as Brian mentioned, I joined the United States Army and I proudly served with the 1st Cavalry Division. I was one of 40 soldiers worldwide selected to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point. I did not want to become a career military officer, so I was honorably discharged and I attended Temple and Temple Law School on a veteran scholarship, both while serving in the United States Army Reserve. And then I got a job in the Philadelphia DA's office. When a lot of my friends took the big money law firm jobs, I decided to represent victims of crime in the most crime-ridden jurisdiction in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I loved every single second of that service. I did it for 6 years, tried over 50 jury trials, thousands of waiver trials, before I left and I went to a small little law firm in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, a clap for Montgomery County for Judge Carluccio, where I started practicing law. I joined a small law firm with 4 lawyers, and we became one of the fastest growing law firms in Pennsylvania. We had at one point over 35 lawyers, over a support staff of 80 people. I became the chairman of the firm's litigation department, and again, I loved every second of it. But after complaining about judges for 22 years or for 16 years, I decided to do something about it, and I ran for judge in the city of Philadelphia, and I was elected in 2013. And again, I sat in the East Division, one of the most crime-ridden jurisdictions in the United States. And I presided probably well over 150 jury trials, thousands of bench trials, pre- and post-trial motions, before being elected to the Pennsylvania Superior Court, where I've now been supervising judge of the Pennsylvania wiretaps. And also, I sit on the Court of Judicial Discipline, as Brian again alluded to. That was a Supreme Court appointment. I handle all of the cases that are assigned for judges' Judicial Conduct Board complaints. I'm running for Supreme Court for a very simple reason. I think after 33 years of experience, it's time to take that experience to the next level. I've worked for government, I've worked with government, and I've worked in private practice. I practice civil litigation, I practice criminal litigation. I have practiced for over 33 years in courtrooms in Pennsylvania, and I think that's the important distinction in this particular case. You want judges, and everybody's going to come up and say the same thing. We want judges who are fair. We want judges who are impartial, and that's important, but that's the starting point. But you also want judges who will bring values to the particular courtroom. As I've said time and time again, each time I've taken the oath, and at 18 I stood up and I raised my right hand and I swore to protect and defend and obey the Constitution of the United States. I took that oath again at the age of 25 as a prosecutor, as an assistant district attorney. I took it at 48 when I became a trial judge, and I took it again at 52 when I became an appellate court judge. God spares me, and God willing, if I am elected to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, I promise to each and every one of you, I will bring that experience, I will bring that temperament to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and I will bring that oath with me to work every single day. And I promise to protect and defend and obey the Constitution, to apply the law evenly and fairly across the board, and to bring my experience to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for the Bar Association, because as I've said beforehand, being a lawyer meant a lot to me. The practice of law meant a lot to me. Building a firm every single day and representing clients in a courtroom meant a lot to me. I know what you do. You stand before the storm, and a lot of times you take very, very, very unpopular positions in court, but you do so because you honor your oath. And I want to thank you for doing what you do. I want to thank the Crawford County Bar Association for inviting me here today to be here with you and to say these particular words. And I want to thank all of my colleagues, and especially I want to thank everybody on both the Democratic and the Republican side for stepping up to run across Pennsylvania, because we all know what an honor and what a sacrifice this is. It's almost a trust to run for these particular offices, but it's a huge imposition on your daily life, and I know how difficult it is to run across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, having done so many times. So thank you for stepping up. Thank you for leading the charge. Thank you.
Our next candidate will be introduced by Attorney Brian Polita.
It's my pleasure to introduce Judge Carolyn Carluccio, Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. Judge Carluccio grew up in a hardworking family of first-generation Italian Americans and proud Irish Catholics with strong ethics and values. Although her family started their own small business, she went on to blaze her own trail in the legal community, starting her career as a federal assistant United States attorney, prosecuting large-scale drug dealers, bank robbers, and money launderers. Her work earned her recognition from the United States Secret Service, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Judge Carluccio served as the first ever female Chief Public Defender of Montgomery County, where she managed a team of 35 attorneys and staff. Additionally, she served as the first woman Chief Deputy Solicitor for the county and the Acting Director of Human Resources. As a Court of Common Pleas judge, Judge Carluccio served with distinction in the family, criminal, and civil court benches for almost 14 years. On her second year on the bench, Judge Carluccio was elected president of the 2,000-member Montgomery County Bar Association, and last year she was unanimously chosen by her peers to serve as the court's first female president judge. For Pennsylvania Supreme Court, Judge Carluccio is highly recommended by the Pennsylvania Bar Association and has earned the endorsement of the Pennsylvania Republican Party. She was born and raised in Montgomery County, where she lives with her husband Tom in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania. She has 3 adult children, Andrew, Charlie, and Joseph. Welcome me in introducing Judge Carluccio.
Thank you, Brian. It's my pleasure to be here. I am Carolyn Carluccio, and I am running for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I'm running for 3 reasons. The first is to bring balance to our court. I think we can all agree, if we're Republican or Democrats, the 5 seats that are Democrat and 2 that are considered Republican is not balanced. Lady Justice does have the scales for a reason, because it's important for justice to be balanced. Second reason is to bring common sense to the court. And finally, to get politics out of the courts. It just doesn't belong there. There's no court in this Commonwealth where politics belongs. Now, I'll tell you a little bit. You were so thorough, Brian, in my background. I'll tell you a little bit about, I am the president judge right now in Montgomery County. I've been on the bench for 14 years, and why it's important that I'm the president judge is I have 24 judges under me. We have more Democrats than Republicans in Montgomery County, and they elected me unanimously. The reason they did that was because they put politics aside, and they decided they needed someone who could get the job done. And that's exactly what I did as president judge. And I think that my role as president judge is really similar to the Supreme Court. Our Supreme Court is the administrative and supervisory over all the courts in the Commonwealth. And that's what I do as president judge in Montgomery County. It's the 3rd largest and busiest court in this Commonwealth. And I have 24 judges and 30 magisterial district judges under my purview, in addition to 560 other employees. And I find doing that every day is very similar, in a smaller base, of course, than our Supreme Court. Prior to that, I was a federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I really had the opportunity to prosecute drug cases throughout the country, which is a rare and really great way to learn to be a judge. And then I became the first woman chief public defender in my county. And why that is important is it shows that I have balance. I'm able to protect our communities while honoring the constitutional rights afforded to those accused of crimes. When I was the first woman chief deputy solicitor in the county, I was handling 52 departments, and our human resources director passed away. And they said to me, "You don't mind filling in for a little while, do you? It'll just be a week or 2. Well, 7 months later, I was still the acting human resources director and the chief deputy solicitor. We had 3,700 employees. And after that, I realized I could do anything and handle anyone. So that's a little bit about my experience in the law. To know who I am, I do like to tell you a little bit about who I come from. My dad is first-generation Italian. He started his own business. He's 92 years old, and he's still working. About 2 years ago, as a very stubborn Italian man, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And of course, the doctor said, "You have 3 months, get your affairs in order." And my dad, he is stubborn. He said, "Not me. Thank you so much, but I'm going to go elsewhere." And so he fought, and that was 2 years ago. Right after the primary, or when he found out I was running for the seat, he said to his doctor, "Give me the most aggressive treatment you have. I have to see my daughter win this race." And then at the primary, he was getting so much aggressive chemo that he wasn't doing well. He couldn't keep anything down. And we put him in the hospital, and when he got out, I called my mom, and I said, does he seem stronger? How's he doing? She said, you know, this morning I looked at him, and he was on the floor. And I said, Mom, did he fall? What's going on? She said he was doing sit-ups. This is a true story. This is my father. This is who I come from. He works out 45 minutes every morning. Today he starts with a personal trainer because he thinks he needs more muscle tone. He is going to beat this. He has reason to live. He has a work ethic. He still works 3 days a week. I get everything from him. I like to say I get my goodness from both my parents, but I get my work ethic and my pride and my drive from my father. So that's a little bit about who I am. I also want to tell you one thing, and let me be very clear. Women's reproductive rights are protected by the Pennsylvania laws. I follow those laws. I am not an activist judge. Only the Governor Shapiro and the legislature can change those laws. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Thank you so much for your time.
Next, we have Attorney Brian Cagle once again introducing our next candidate, Judge Tamika Lane.
I'm proud to introduce Judge Tamika Lane. Judge Lane is the daughter of a Philadelphia police detective and a Marine. Judge Lane attended Howard University, graduating in 1994. She then, instead of going to law school, taught social studies to middle school students for several years. Judge Lane received her law degree from Rutgers Camden School of Law in 2002. After law school, she practiced in many different areas: family law, criminal law, and later worked on legislation as chief legal counsel for a state senator. Judge Lane was elected as a judge in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas in 2013. In that role, she previously worked in the Major Trials Program, handling human trafficking cases, serious felony criminal matters, and investigative grand jury matters. Currently, Judge Lane is assigned to the Complex Litigation Jury Trial Program in the court's Civil Division. Judge Lane is the co-chair of the County Adult Probation and Parole Advisory Committee and a commissioner on the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, just to name two of her many professional appointments and activities. She also has a long list of community service outside of the legal profession, including serving as a trustee at the Bright Hope Baptist Church, executive director of the New Life New Member Ministry, and vice president of the Hospitality Ministry, again, just to name a few. Judge Lane is the proud mother of a daughter who followed in her footsteps to become a Howard University Bison. Judge Lane has the Bar Association Judicial Evaluation Commission's highly recommended rating because of her extensive trial court experience, well-reasoned, clear and concise writing, and extensive community involvement. Please join me in welcoming Judge Tamika Lane.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I don't know what to say. That was so wonderful. I'm so glad to be here and honored that you extended an invitation to all of us to speak about the courts. Because if that's one thing I can do, I can talk about the courts all day. But before I go there, my name is Tamika Lane, and I'm currently a judge on the Court of Common Pleas. And I really love just listening to people, like I was listening to Judges Carluccio and Judges McCaffrey, talk about who they are, because I think that's the crux of all of it. Who are we? Because it really matters. You've heard the stock I come from. My dad was a Mumford Point Marine. My mother's now a retired police detective. My grandmother worked in the cafeteria. My grandfather was in the Army, as well as several of my uncles, and my brother was in the Navy. So I come from a family of service. That's how I was raised. We had to work hard for everything that we had. Nothing was given to us. And my grandmother always had a saying. She would say, "It's not about you, child. It's not about you, honey." Whichever word. It was interchangeable, child or honey. And the crux of that meant that it wasn't about us, it was about how we can be of service. And that's how my family led every day. They showed me that example. That's why I was a public school teacher teaching 7th grade social studies. I loved it. I love teaching our youth about what's going on and being an educator and sponsoring field trips and doing all of the things that you get to do with the yearbook and things as a teacher, all the extracurriculars. But I was also at a crossroads because I also wanted to be an attorney. So after I taught for 4 years, I went to law school, and they actually overlapped a little bit, where I was a school teacher, and then at night I would go to law school, and then I went full time. And that goes to show who I am. I work hard for everything that I have, and that's the roots I come from. And while I was in law school, particularly Rutgers-Camden, I chose that because they let you be really active in the pro bono clinics. And that means that I'm talking to lawyers, you know what that meant. So I was active with the pro bono clinic as well as the bankruptcy clinic. And I got to really serve the constituents and people around Rutgers-Camden. After that, after I graduated, I clerked for a judge on a court of common pleas. I also was a child advocate representing children. As you already know, that's a really tough job to see the circumstances that some of them had to endure before I got there. I was a civil arbiter where we sit on a panel of 3 and we would decide civil cases. So I really enjoyed that. I also was a major trials attorney where I tried countless jury trials and waiver trials for adults as well as juveniles. So I have extensive trial court experience. After that, I did go to Harrisburg and I worked for a state senator, and I was also the executive director for the state government committee. And I loved working in Harrisburg. That was a whole new world for me. You know, I came from a place where, I was never politically active. I didn't know that world. I oftentimes would meet my grandmother after school and sit in the cafeteria until she was done. So that's where I came from. So that opened up another world of how I can continue to serve and to help people. And one thing that I love doing there is that I would translate what I called it, the laws, because all these bills would come out and people wouldn't know what they meant. And I would put them on church fans in just layman's terms so people can know what was happening in Harrisburg. Because a lot of times people want to know, but they can't understand that language, or they want it broken down to where they understand and where it's impactful and meaningful to them. And I really enjoyed that. But I never forgot the things that I saw as an attorney, as a child advocate, and it propelled me to actually leave my job and to sell my car because I don't come from money. And I stepped out on faith, after talking it over with my family and my pastor, and I ran for the Court of Common Pleas. And a lot of people say, I'm from this place in Philly called the Bottom. It's like the other side of the tracks. They said, nobody from the Bottom has ever won. You don't have any money, you can't do it. I said, okay, I'm gonna show you. And that's what I did. After I sold my car, I worked my butt off, and I kept the hills from when I ran because they are so worn down, because I may not have money, but my work ethic is unparalleled. And that is a reminder that you can never believe when someone tells you you can't do something. You have to believe in yourself first. And when I was elected to the Court of Common Pleas with Judge McCaffrey in 2013, immediately I was put into East. And that is one of the busiest, probably courtrooms in Pennsylvania, maybe even the country. It's really made national news for the things that have happened in that area. And I tried a lot of jury cases as well as bench trials. And within 5 months of being on the bench, they actually selected me as one of 5 judges to hear family violence cases. And that primarily consisted of sexual assaults, domestic violence cases that I did. And I had such a passion for that eventually they made me the presiding judge of the human trafficking adult program. And I heard those cases. And that is why I'm here, because I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that courtroom was a safe space to tell the things that happened to them, that they knew their voice would be heard, and that justice would be served. During my time on the bench, I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and my cases have been diverse. From, I told you, human trafficking cases where, I'll just give you an example. A young lady, she left home at 14. Within 3 days, she was trafficked and forced to crawl and eat out of a dog bowl, and she had a dog collar on. And it was in my courtroom that I knew, because she told me that she felt safe to say what happened to her. I also had a trial with members of the Aryan Nation, where they broke into someone's house and gouged out a gentleman's eyes and left him for dead. And at the end of that trial, they thanked me because they felt like they had a fair trial. And that's what I'm here for. It doesn't matter what's going on. I want everyone to know when you come before Judge Tamika Lane that you will receive a fair trial. That's what I do day in and day out. And now that I'm in the civil trial division, that extends there as well. And running for the Superior Court is the natural next step of progression. Everything that I do on the Court of Common Pleas, that is what the Superior Court hears. That is where the direct appeals go, to the Superior Court. You gave me a wonderful shout out about the bar when they referenced my legal writing and opinions, because that matters. The Superior Court, oftentimes, you just have a cold record that you go for before you render a decision. So who best can do that than someone who has experience on both sides as a trial judge as well as a trial attorney, a major trials attorney. And that experience is needed. You've heard about all the stuff I do in the community because that's important to me. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they appointed me to be the co-chair for the Adult County Probation and Parole Advisory Commission. I've also been appointed to be a commissioner on the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, because it matters. We cannot be in these positions and think it's about us. It's not about us. It's definitely not about me. It is how we can impact others in the community that we serve and that we live in. That's why multiple chancellors of the Philadelphia Bar Association appointed me to be co-chair for the Advancing Civics Education Program. That's where judges and lawyers go into schools, public schools, and we teach civics, because we know that matters more now than ever. I've also been very active in my church and in different things in the community. And I just want to say thank you so much. I don't know if I'm over time, but I just really appreciate that you gave us the opportunity to talk about who we are, because that's what we bring to the table. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Judge Tamika Lane for Superior Court.
Next, we have Attorney Dave Hotchkiss. He's going to introduce our next candidate. My understanding is this introduction's close to your heart here a little bit.
Close to my heart. Thank you, Andrew. It's my great privilege to introduce our next speaker, Maria Batista, who is a candidate for the Pennsylvania Superior Court. Maria is no stranger to this community. She began her legal career in our former law firm, the Culbertson Law Firm, right here in Meadville, quite a number of years ago. Maria has more than 15 years of legal experience in civil, criminal, and administrative law, and is a former assistant district attorney. She is a skilled mediator and public speaker. As a Commonwealth attorney, Batista was counsel in the Departments of Health and State. For 3 years, she was a hearing examiner, where she presided over hundreds of cases, including for the Department of Corrections. Those who know her have found her to have a strong legal mind while showing compassion. Maria has been a presenter for continuing legal education courses in mediation, oral arguments before appellate courts, and healthcare matters. She plans to use her diverse legal and educational background to establish an office that is efficient, accountable, and transparent. I'm proud to give you Maria Batista.
Good afternoon. It is such an honor and privilege to be here with all of you. Crawford County has been my second home, and certainly where I started my career with such a great firm. As you all know, our courts are so very important to us. And as a candidate for the Superior Court, it is very important that we understand what these courts do. Now, the attorneys in this room understand what the Superior Court does, but those viewers that are going to be watching these speeches do not. The Superior Court is important because when you think about the cases that you see in the newspapers every day, that you hear about and observe maybe in your communities, whether it's your criminal cases, your civil cases, your family matters, your complex litigation, all of those types of cases go to the Superior Court. The decisions of judges impact our lives every single day. The rights and freedoms that we have, they're impacted by those decisions. My career, as Dave said, is very diverse. While I started in Crawford County, I have practiced across this great Commonwealth, and I've learned so much, not only from being a practicing attorney, but also as an educator. I have my experience in the civil law, starting in Crawford County, doing the insurance defense work, doing the business law, doing the real estate transactions. Then I had my own practice in Clarion County and merged it with Venango County. And as you know, with small communities, you have a general practice and you do a little bit of everything. So the types of cases that go to the Superior Court, I've done. When you think about the criminal cases, which is about predominantly 70% of the cases that go to the Superior Court, I have that experience as well. I was a prosecutor, assistant district attorney in both Venango County and Franklin counties. I've done the jury trials, I've done the bench trials, which is a trial in front of a judge. And I've also been in court on a regular basis as a prosecutor. I was very honored and proud to serve under Governor Corbett and into the next administration for 6 years as a government lawyer, both in the Departments of Health and State. While in the Department of Health, I oversaw all of the licensing for home care, home health care, hospices, birth centers, dialysis centers, as well as that Drug Device and Cosmetic Act. That Drug Act is what our law enforcement uses every single day. In addition, I had the opportunity to serve as a hearing examiner for 3 years. What is a hearing examiner? Many people don't know what that is. I was never elected as a sitting judge like some of our candidates, but I did hear cases, hundreds of them, where parties appeared before me. I evaluated the credibility of the witnesses, I evaluated the evidence, and ultimately I issued decisions. And if those decisions were appealed, they would go to an appellate court. They did not go to the Superior Court, but they went to the sister intermediate appellate court, and that was the Commonwealth Court. The same skills, the same analytical skills, the writing skills, appearing and listening to those witnesses and treating both lawyers and the parties before you with respect and civility is the same type of skills necessary for any judge sitting on any court, including our appellate courts. I also have a unique background. In addition to my legal experience, I was an educator, both in the K-12 setting as well in higher education. I taught not only communication courses, but I taught the types of classes for those that would prepare you to be in the criminal justice system. I taught criminal procedure. I taught administration of justice, and I taught juvenile justice. I understand that sometimes people don't believe in our judicial system. It is a separate branch of government. But people sometimes feel that they didn't get a fair shake when they went into the courtroom. And they don't know if they're going to get a fair shake if they come before any of us. But I can tell you in the nearly 30 years of practicing in law and teaching and in government, that I have always treated everyone with respect and civility, an opportunity to be heard when I was a hearing examiner. And I always listened. Many people talk about, I hear you, but are you an active listener? One of the 2 key skills of any judge, of any attorney, is being an active listener and being a great writer. And I've done both of those in my entire career as an educator and as a lawyer. When you think about the courts, there's one thing that someone shared with me recently, and I want to share it with all of you and to our viewers through Armstrong Cable. When you think about how a bill is passed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it takes 129 people. It takes 102 in the House of Representatives, it takes 26 in the Senate, and it needs the governor's signature. How many people does it take to impact someone's life on the Superior Court? 2. It's a 15-judge court. The majority of cases are in panels of 3. So 2 judges of 3 decide the fate of where a child goes, the best interest of that child, if someone stays in jail, and so many more important decisions, including your property rights. 2 judges. This is not an off-year election. These courts impact us every single day. On my palm card that many of you have here today, and for those viewers that want to look a little bit more about me, I'm on Facebook at Batista for Judge, and on my batistaforjudge.com website. It is truly supposed to be equal justice under the law, and every person counts. Why? Because justice is supposed to be blind. And I will be committed to that as a judge on the Superior Court. I've been committed to that my entire career. And we also need diversity in geography on our courts. I am the Northwestern candidate. I grew up in Clarion County. I still live in Clarion County. I've practiced across the Commonwealth. but I still have my rural roots. And we need representation of judges throughout this entire Commonwealth, and I also bring that to the bench. Thank you so very much for this opportunity today, and I look forward to talking with all of you and to the viewers out there, and thank you for your consideration and your vote on November 7th.
Our next Superior Court candidate will be introduced by attorney Noah Erdy.
I've been asked to introduce Jill Beck, a candidate for the Superior Court. Jill was raised in Pittsburgh and knew from a young age that she wanted to be an advocate for the underserved. While pursuing her undergraduate degree in criminal justice from the George Washington University, she served as a counselor at a residential facility for adjudicated delinquent girls, and later as an assistant forensic interviewer at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. After graduating with honors, she served as an AmeriCorps Fellow working with adolescents on probation. These experiences drew her to the practice of law. She graduated at the top of her class from Duquesne University School of Law, after which she chose to work for Kids Voice, a nonprofit organization where she represented abused and neglected children in court proceedings and beyond. Her experience advocating for children led Jill to want to serve from the other side of the bench in Pennsylvania's appellate courts. To further that goal, Jill spent the next 10 years in public service as a law clerk under the Honorable Christine Donahue on the Superior and Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, where she drafted over 500 decisions involving criminal, civil, family, juvenile, and orphan court matters. In 2019, Jill became a civil litigator at Blank Rome, where she continued to help the underserved in Pennsylvania's legal system by representing members of the LGBTQ+ community, veterans, victims of domestic violence and gun violence, assisting those experiencing housing insecurity, supporting low-income criminal defendants, providing guidance for low-income pro se civil litigants, and volunteering to aid in voter protection efforts. Jill resides with her husband, 2 children, and rescue dog in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood in Pittsburgh, where she is an active volunteer in her children's classrooms as well as her community. She heads drives to provide holiday gifts for children living in homeless shelters and organized a program to furnish food insecure children with backpacks filled with school supplies. She also directed Sue's Run for Kids, a charity event she founded with her father to honor the life of her mother and to raise money for Pennsylvania teens in the foster care system. Jill has dedicated her professional career to ensuring that all Pennsylvanians have access to justice because she believes that justice is served only when every person has fair and equal access to the courts. She now hopes to serve on the Superior Court of Pennsylvania to continue her efforts for fairness in our judicial system. The Pennsylvania Bar Association highly recommends her as she is running to ensure that justice in Pennsylvania truly is for all. It is my pleasure to introduce Jill Beck as a candidate for judge for the Superior Court of Pennsylvania.
Thank you very much, Noah, for that introduction, and thank you to the Crawford County Bar Association for hosting this event. My name is Jill Beck. I am from Allegheny County, and it is my pleasure to be with you today. You've heard a little bit about it, and I'm going to just sort of reiterate, the Superior Court is an incredibly important court in our Commonwealth. Certainly all of our courts are. The Superior Court, what you may not know, is the busiest intermediate appellate court in the country, deciding approximately 6,500 decisions a year. It is so important that we have people sitting on this court who know the law, will apply the law, and will apply it fairly to every person and entity that comes before this court. Now, the Superior Court hears appeals from criminal, civil, family, juvenile, and orphans court cases. When somebody loses at trial, they have an automatic right to challenge that decision to the Superior Court. And the Superior Court performs error correction and error review to ensure that the facts found by the trial court are supported by the record and that the law was correctly and faithfully applied. This is an incredibly important role because our Supreme Court, as you already heard, an incredibly important court as well, does not do the same error correction that the Superior Court does. It is a policy-making court. So whereas the Superior Court decides about 6,500 decisions a year, our Supreme Court decides about 150. So about 98% of the cases live or die in the Superior Court, making it so critical that we have people there, again, who are fair, balanced, and knowledgeable in the law. Now, I have practiced in all of the areas the Superior Court hears. I've practiced in the Superior Court itself, filing, defending, and orally arguing appeals in that court, as well as appellate courts across the country. And I spent 10 years clerking on the other side of the bench, as you heard, 6 years on the Superior Court, 4 years on the Supreme Court, where I drafted over 500 of these very decisions. In my career, I have tried over 1,200 cases in the Court of Common Pleas. I have had a very active and very busy litigation schedule. I have also argued and tried about 24 decisions in appellate courts across the country. So I know the court, I know the law, I care very deeply about the people who come before the court as well. As you heard, I started my legal career at Kids Voice representing abused and neglected children. After my clerkship, when I made the decision that I wanted to run for the Superior Court, I had to unfortunately leave my job there, and I joined the law firm Blank Rome in their Pittsburgh office. There, in addition to my complex commercial litigation and appellate practice, I chaired the Pittsburgh office pro bono department. That allowed me to do work representing victims of domestic violence, racial discrimination, wage theft, and illegal gun sales. I helped members of the LGBTQ community and veterans, and I just generally worked to help people without money get the same rights and protections as people with means. Because that is what this court is about. An even playing field for everyone who comes before the court. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter if you're a big business or a small family business or a small family farmer. The law doesn't change. The law applies to every single person and entity. And I will add to that the law doesn't change if you're a Democrat or a Republican. And I've been saying from day one that partisanship and politics have no place in our courts. It is critical that we don't look at this as a Democratic judge or a Republican judge. We need to look at this as a judge who's going to do the job, do it well, do it fairly, and do it with integrity. I am honored to have been highly recommended by the Pennsylvania Bar Association, as well as the Allegheny County Bar Association, to be a Superior Court judge. That is a very intensive process, involving a 30-plus page application, a 3-member panel comprised of 2 attorneys and 1 non-attorney that does a very extensive background check, and an 18-member panel that I affectionately call the firing squad that sits around and just asks you questions. They're testing you to see what is your temperament, what is your legal knowledge, what is your background, do you have the experience, do you have the ethics, do you have the integrity to do this job? And so I'm very, very proud to say that the Pennsylvania Bar Association has given me their highest rating. This is an important election. We have a lot of rights on the line, and we have day-to-day cases that are coming before these courts that affect everyday Pennsylvanians. And please understand that even if you are not the litigants involved in these cases will affect you, because our Superior Court is interpreting our laws and our Constitution. And so a law that did not adversely affect you yesterday very well could adversely affect you tomorrow. If you own a home, rent an apartment, drive a car, walk on the sidewalk, have a job, own property, these cases can and will affect you. So we need to know that the people sitting on the bench are the people that we would trust and want to be able to go to before. I also tell voters all the time, you don't usually get to choose when you're going before a court. That happens to you, not for you. And so you want to make sure that the folks that you're going to be coming in front of feel confident they are going to decide your case fairly. I have been campaigning in all 67 counties, most of them more than once. For me, it's important. I want to run my campaign like I want to run my courtroom, with every voice having the opportunity to be heard. I have traveled near and far, talked to voters of Democratic, Independent, and Republican registration, and everything in between. Our courts are of utmost importance, and we need Pennsylvania to be a place where justice truly can be for all. I am honored to be here today. I am proud to be one of the nominees for Superior Court, and I would love to have your vote on November 7th. Thank you very much, and thank you for making any effort to elect Jill Beck. Thank you.
Next is Brian Polito, once again, making an introduction. This is our last Superior Court candidate.
I'm introducing Judge Harry Smale from Westmoreland County Court of Common Pleas. Judge Smale Jr. has been a judge of the Court of Common Pleas in Westmoreland County for 8.5 years. He was appointed by Governor Tom Corbett to serve on the bench in 2014 and unanimously confirmed by the state Senate. In 2015, Judge Smale won both parties' nominations to a full term on the Westmoreland County Court of Common Pleas. During this time on the bench, Judge Smale has served initially in family court, but for the past 5 or 6 years, Judge Smale has administered a complex civil litigation docket with a variety of nuanced legal issues related to government and municipal issues, elections, energy law, and land use and constitutional challenges. His time on the bench has been marked by significant cases that have had a statewide impact. His rulings have helped shape the application of the law regarding land use and energy development, the Second Amendment, election law, and many other areas. Judge Smale has also served as an elections judge in Westmoreland County, overseeing recounts and petition challenges, among other issues. In 2020, he presided over critical election law cases that upheld the essential anti-fraud requirements for casting a mail-in ballot, including accurate dates and signatures. Judge Smale graduated from Grove City College and Duquesne University School of Law. He attended the night school there while working as a probation and parole officer, supervising 225 individuals. As a litigator operating his own firm, Judge Smale argued cases before both the magistrate courts, the Court of Common Pleas, federal courts, all the way up to the federal appellate level. Judge Smale is a longtime member of the Federalist Society and serves on the Duquesne Law Alumni Board. He is a longtime member and past president-elect of the Westmoreland County Bar Association. Prior to serving as judge, Judge Smale has also served on numerous nonprofit boards. Judge Smale is a lifelong Republican and was active as a member of the Westmoreland Republican Committee, serving not only as its solicitor for 15 years, but also as a past chairman of the Young Republicans of Westmoreland County. He is also a former member of the Republican State Committee. Judge Smale and his wife Renee live in Hempfield Township in Westmoreland County, and they have 2 daughters. Please welcome me and please welcome Judge Smale. Thanks, sir. Welcome. Yep.
That was a fabulous introduction. Thank you again for having me here in Crawford County. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Purpose is to be a champion for the independence of the judiciary. We need strong candidates, and I believe that you have to be a sitting judge to be on the Superior Court, because it is going to be a court which is the judge of judges. It is a place where they make a determination of, in their analysis, did the judge act appropriately? Did the attorneys act appropriately? Were the cases done correctly? In the analysis, was the outcome constitutional both for the U.S. Constitution and the PA Constitution? Was the analysis of the statute correct? Did you read the legislative comment? Do you understand what was at issue? Did you make the correct rulings under the rules of evidence? These are all practical things that must be done. My opinions are my own opinions with contribution from law clerks. I am the author of those opinions. I've had more than 100 appeals. I've never been overturned because it is not my place to legislate from the bench. It is my place to enforce the law as the legislation has put it forward and as it has been approved by the executive branch. My job is to act independently to secure that third branch of government. And the way that you do that is you don't delay justice, because in that you deny it. You must be a man of action. You must be able to handle the cases that come before you. Only getting that experience gives you the practical experience to handle the issues that come before the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. It is often the court of last resort, meaning that's the final decision you'll get, because the Supreme Court may not accept your case. And as Attorney Beck has indicated, that they only take a very limited amount of those cases because they're policy oriented. Therefore, you are done as a result of the opinion of the Superior Court. In saying that, I'm also a judge of conviction. If I find that the panel is doing it incorrectly, doesn't view it correctly, I have no problem writing a dissent and standing up for the citizens of Pennsylvania. I'm in this for public service. I serve 365,000 people in Westmoreland County. I want to be one of 15 that serves 13 million citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. My purpose is to do the right thing, day in, day out, every day. Where did I get such a strong personality? I grew up in a house with 4 sisters, a mother, and a female dog, so my dad and I were the only 2 survivors out of that. Now I live in a house with 2 daughters, a female dog, and a wife, and I'm still thriving. So that tells you exactly the formidable opponents I have. And they are oftentimes women who are much stronger sometimes with their convictions than I found my associates, other attorneys, or my peers on the bench. I believe my peers on the bench agree with me that the Superior Court and its volume is of such a busy nature that you must be thriving, full of energy, and prepared to do the job from day one. I am boots on the ground. I'm prepared to pull the trigger. And I am prepared and fit to go in and handle those criminal appeals, to handle all of the family appeals, to handle all of the civil complex litigation. I had a private practice for 17 years on my own. I'm a self-made, self-driven individual. I went to law school at night, as indicated in my introduction, as a probation and parole officer. I am not from money. My father managed a credit union. My mother handled billing for Westmoreland Hospital. These are obviously a middle-class type of upbringing. But the only way you made it in my family was you went out there and had to achieve. Grove City College gave me that independent view without any federal influence that drove me to go to law school at night and become the man that stands before you today. I'm a man of conviction, a man of faith as a Presbyterian, a Scotsman by ethnic background, and devout in my beliefs. I have a moral compass, I'm very principled, and I stand on what I deliver. I do not trivialize or tell you something that will not occur. And I've made that reputation in my courtroom. I intend to make that reputation on the Superior Court. I would be very enthusiastic if I could gain your support. And to you viewers out there, if you'll go to votejudgesmell.com, please find more transparent information about me. You can also go to the AOPC and find out information about my cases and look up my background. Some of my endorsements, just so you know where I'm coming from, are I've been endorsed by the Pennsylvania County Detectives Association, the International Police Association, Regional 13 for Pennsylvania. I have been recommended by the Corrections Association and endorsed thereby. The FOP 56, or Fraternal Order of Police, have endorsed me as well. The Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce. I'm also under consideration for the National Federation of Independent Businesses. I have done a myriad of cases in gas and oil industry, municipal law, complex litigation, medical malpractice, personal injury, children youth services, divorce, custody, equitable distribution, domestic relations. These experiences are necessary as a sitting judge to have under your belt to be the judge of other judges. It is that important, and it is critical for you to consider that today. I believe the attorneys here and my peers on the judiciary understand the importance of appellate outcomes, because it oftentimes affects how we are constrained on the Court of Common Pleas relative to what we can do in a case. Therefore, I would mindfully, respectfully ask for your vote, and I appreciate any and all time that you have given me here today, and I certainly hope that you'll consider me and tell your friends, your family, and everybody. If they told 10 people, we could have an outstanding turnout for this election as opposed to the minimal return that we often get in municipal years. So thank you again.
And now we have our first Commonwealth Court candidate to be introduced by Attorney Noah Erdy.
Thank you. I've been asked to introduce Judge Matt Wolf as a candidate for the judge of the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. Judge Wolf is currently a supervising civil judge of the Philadelphia Municipal Court. He is a decorated veteran of the U.S. Army for over 20 years and is currently serving as an active reservist as a cavalry scout in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. He previously served honorably in the Army JAG Corps in Iraq and Afghanistan, earning the Bronze Star Medal. Prior to being elected to the Philadelphia Municipal Court bench, Judge Wolf spent 25 years practicing law in the Delaware Valley with a concentration on civil rights matters. He handled appeals in the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, the New Jersey Appellate Division, the New Jersey Supreme Court, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and the United States Supreme Court. As the only sitting judge in the election for the Commonwealth Court and a former civil rights attorney, he believes he understands fairness and equity. As supervising civil judge, his responsibilities include advising the Philadelphia Municipal Court President Judge on all matters related to policies and procedures for the Civil Division of the Philadelphia Municipal Court. President Judge on all matters relating to, in his tenure, he has overseen an overhaul of the court's website to make it easier for laymen to understand, including utilization of explanatory videos. Judge Wolf is currently overseeing a complete revision to the Philadelphia Municipal Court civil rules. Judge Wolf's passion for civil rights continues to this day in various ways, including his interest in the interplay between debt and housing in Pennsylvania and finding solutions to housing issues. He is concerned that people with judgments against them have a harder time finding housing and is looking for solutions to make housing possible for all Pennsylvanians in a way that does not compromise creditors. Judge Wolf is an architect of the eviction diversion program, which has helped disperse nearly $300 million to aid 46,000 at-risk households within just 30 months. He is recommended by the Philadelphia Bar Association. He is endorsed by the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO and the Pennsylvania Building Trades. The Pennsylvania Bar Association recommends him, saying that his writing is clear and concise, and noted his history of public service. Please welcome Judge Matt Wolf as candidate for the Judge of the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania.
So it wasn't that long ago that I was out there where you are at bar functions and somebody else was up here. If I'm successful at becoming a judge on the Commonwealth Court, I want to be the judge who remembers what it was like to practice law. Right now, as a judge on the Philadelphia Municipal Court, I try to be a judge who remembers what it was like to practice law. Tell me after I'm done whether you can relate to what I'm about to say. Back in high school, my parents were like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I had 6 older brothers, 5 of whom went to St. Joe's Prep. And I said, I'm going to go to St. Joe's Prep. And then when I was done that, they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go to college. And then once that was done, they said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go to law school. And every time I would put that question to them, they'd say, yeah, that's what you're going to do. And then fast forward, I said, I'm going to join the Army. And it wasn't a question. It was purposeful. And then years later, I said, I'm going to run for judge. And the other people would say, you're going to run for judge? The question came from that. And now I find that when I tell people that I'm running for the Commonwealth Court, I get the head nod. And I feel good about that. I remember practicing law. I remember getting yelled at by judges. I remember a judge telling me, Matt, I'm sorry I gave you so much trouble. I hadn't had time to read the briefs. These things I remember, and I take them as life experiences when I'm sitting on the bench now. And I try to make everybody feel comfortable. Not once in the 5 years, 7 months, and change of being a judge have I ever yelled in court. Have I ever raised my voice at a litigant, a witness, or an attorney? I've treated everybody with respect and dignity, and I think that's important. In the Philadelphia Municipal Court, what we focused on is trying to make the court accessible. We've been working with the National Center for State Courts as a national consultant for 2.5 years. We've revised all of the unrepresented litigant-facing materials to make it friendlier, more approachable, and accessible as a court. We have thousands of cases that come through our court that are debt cases, landlord-tenant cases, and we want everybody there to feel comfortable when they come to court so that they can tell their story. In 2005, I was ordered to active duty, and I was mobilized to Iraq as a Judge Advocate General. And I served in Baghdad. And I continued to practice law as I had before, but on behalf of the United States government as a claims adjuster for the United States government in the coalition forces. We paid out for non-combat injury and death in the combat zone. So personal injury and property damage. We would roll around with $200,000 in cash. We flew to the embassy and other locations to pay out claims, mostly to Iraqi civilians. In 2007, I was the administrative law chief at the Military Intelligence Readiness Command in Washington, D.C. And then I went to Afghanistan after that. There I was the rule of law advisor to the one lawyer for 67,000 police in the Afghan National Police. That was quite a challenge. I'm proud of the service that I've rendered to the United States Army Reserve. In 2020, I transferred to the Army National Guard. I resigned my commission, and I became, instead of an O4 Major Judge Advocate General, I became an E4 Cavalry Scout Specialist. I was mobilized in the summer of 2020, 4 months after I joined the National Guard, for the civil unrest in Philadelphia. I served at Kensington and Allegheny in Kensington, Philadelphia. 12-hour shifts for a week with a rifle, a Humvee, and 20 other soldiers, maintaining order so folks could get to the CVS and get diapers, because it was that bad during that period of time in Philadelphia. I distinctly remember seeing a police car overturned at City Hall on fire as I was walking past my chambers. So I remember that. I'm proud of the work that I've done as a member of the United States Army Reserve. I'm proud of my work in the National Guard. I'm proud of my 25 years as a litigator, most of which was done doing civil rights work. I represented mostly women in sexual harassment, quid pro quo, hostile work environment, wrongful termination claims. I tried a lot of cases. I prosecuted appeals. I defended appeals. I'm proud of the litigation experience that I bring, which informs me as a judge to treat the lawyers, the litigants, the witnesses, and court personnel with respect at all times. And I hope I'm able to bring that to the Commonwealth Court and continue what I've been doing. So thank you very much for the time. I'm privileged to be able to address a bar association. I do remember what it was like to be in the audience. I've tried to keep it brief. Thank you very much.
And Brian Polito will once again round out this office.
It's my pleasure to introduce Megan Martin. Megan was born and raised in Delaware County. Her dad is a true American success story, the son of Italian immigrants who became a doctor and dedicated his medical career to serving those in his hometown community of Chester for more than 5 decades. Her mother was a devoted wife and mother to her dad and 6 children. Megan credits her dedicated work ethic to her father and her faith and love of family to her beloved mother. Megan believes that public service is a calling and that she has been called to serve. She answered that call, and her legal career spans more than 3 decades across our state and federal government. Megan has the unique distinction of serving in all 3 branches of our state government and as an attorney in the United States Navy. Megan served as a judicial law clerk, drafting opinions and learning firsthand the important, impartial, and independent role of a judge in the judicial branch. Megan also served in the administrations of 2 governors, where she practiced administrative law for nearly a decade. She assisted with the preparation of pleadings for appellate litigation in state and federal courts. She reviewed thousands of governmental contracts. She reviewed all proposed Commonwealth public financing transactions and bond transactions, deeds, and leases executed by administrative agencies, and all proposed rules and regulations. Megan also provided legal advice on constitutional and statutory issues impacting the executive agencies, as well as on contracting and transactional issues including protests, licensing, preemption, innovation and privatization, international agreements, and memorandum agreements with both the federal, local, and state governmental entities. Megan proudly served as an attorney in our U.S. Navy, where she was both litigator and transactional attorney, managing heavy caseloads and concentrating her robust administrative law practice on governmental contracts, civilian, personal labor, and employment matters. Megan made history when she became the first and only woman to serve as the Pennsylvania State Secretary Parliamentarian. There she managed the legislative process with diligence and care for more than a decade. Always keeping our Constitution, laws, and rules of the Senate as her North Star, Megan was unanimously elected by the senators 5 times, which is a true testament to the fair and impartial way that she has conducted herself as parliamentarian. At the Senate, Megan also had a quasi-judicial role, where she decided legal appeals and drafted legal opinions on right-to-know issues. Megan is highly regarded across the Commonwealth and the nation for her experience in governmental law and process, and especially for the judicious and skillful way in which she carried out her important responsibilities while at the Pennsylvania Senate. Megan was honored nationally by her parliamentary peers for her work as Secretary Parliamentarian, receiving the NCSL, National Conference of State Legislatures 2001 Legislative Achievement Award. She is a graduate of Widener Law Commonwealth and with its 2021 Excellence in Public Service Award, honoring her 3-decade career of service. She is also a recipient of numerous meritorious service awards for her legal work in the Navy. Megan moved to Central Pennsylvania to attend law school and has made her home there for more than 30 years. Today, Megan resides with her husband, children, and dog in Mechanicsburg. Please welcome Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Brian, for that kind introduction, and I do have to make a point of clarification. I was an attorney for the Navy, not in the Navy. Big difference. So I want to make that crystal clear to everyone. Thank you all for having me here today. I am delighted to be in Crawford County. My name is Megan Martin. I am an attorney in Cumberland County, and I'm working very hard to become your next Commonwealth Court judge.
What I'd like to do today is leave you with 3 points to remember about me. The first point speaks to my values. The second point speaks to my one-of-a-kind experience. And the third point speaks to just why I am running for our Commonwealth Court. So let's go back to the first point. Who am I and what kind of judge will I be? Ladies and gentlemen, please remember that I hold values of faith, family, hard work, and reverence for our Constitution. And I hold a judicial philosophy that each and every one of you and each and every person all across our great Commonwealth can trust. My parents instilled my values in me, and they are who I am at my core. My mom was incredibly devout and faith-filled. Her greatest joy in life was being a mom to me and my 5 brothers and sisters. Mom passed on her deep faith and love of family to me. I'm blessed with my own amazing, wonderful family, my husband Scott, and we have 3 great kiddos who are 17, 18, and 22. I get my work ethic from my dad. My dad is 91 years old. He is the son of Italian immigrants, and he is the hardest working guy that I know. My dad taught me that if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and work hard, you can be anything in America. Dad passed on his relentless work ethic to me. I apply it to every aspect of my life. I'm applying it to this campaign, and God willing, I get elected to the Commonwealth Court. I will apply it to my time on the bench as well. So that's a little bit about who I am, but what kind of judge will I be? Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we need judges who are fair and impartial and independent. We need judges who will check their politics at the doors of the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, we need judges who will defend the rule of law because we are a nation of law and order. We need judges who will protect our constitutional rights and freedoms. And we need judges who will apply the law as it was written by our General Assembly, who will not be activists and who will not legislate from the bench. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we need Commonwealth Court judges who are not afraid to hold our government accountable. Because just as you and I and every single person all across our great Commonwealth has to follow the law, so too does our government. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be that judge. So please remember that today. The next point I'd like you to remember about me is that I think that I am the best candidate for Commonwealth Court because I'm going to bring to the court a nearly 30-year career of service that has given me truly unmatched and comprehensive and one-of-a-kind experience in Pennsylvania's government law and process and in administrative law that I alone can bring to our Commonwealth Court. And this is so very important given our Commonwealth's special mission to only hear these types of government cases. I know government. I've spent the last 3 decades learning the intricacies of our government, and I've done it through a very special and one-of-a-kind career path. As stated in the introduction, I'm the only attorney I know who has served in all 3 branches here of our Pennsylvania state government and as an attorney for the United States Navy. At the Navy, I was a litigator where I litigated administrative law matters, I was a transactional lawyer, and then I handled whatever other matters walked through my door on the base. In addition to that, I served throughout our state government. I learned firsthand working for a judge how to issue opinions, how to treat clients, how to treat the attorneys, how to administer justice fairly. And I learned the importance of the independence of our judiciary. I've served the administrations of 2 of our governors where I literally learned the intricacies of Pennsylvania state government from the top down. I learned the legal issues, the regulatory issues, the policy issues, and the operational issues. There are few people who share in that kind of knowledge about our Pennsylvania state government. And I learned the legislative issues through my last 10.5 years of service as a parliamentarian at our Pennsylvania State Senate. At the Senate, this was a job where every day I had to act like a judge. I had to check my politics at the doors of our Capitol and fairly and impartially, in a nonpartisan manner, manage the legislative process for our Senate. I always kept our Constitution as my North Star. And to get and keep that job, I had to get elected by the senators every other year, and I was unanimously elected 5 times. Also at the Senate, I had a role where I decided those right-to-know cases, and I issued my decisions, I issued my opinions. They were grounded in law, and they were never overturned by our Commonwealth Court. So I'm incredibly proud of that. So I want you to please remember that I will bring one-of-a-kind experience to our one-of-a-kind Commonwealth Court. And the third point I'd like to discuss with you today is just why am I running for Commonwealth Court? Well, the first point I would like you to remember in that regard is I am not a politician. I've never run for public office before, but I'm a wife and I'm a mom and I'm a lawyer, and I want better for my 3 children. I hear so much day after day about the bad and the ugly in our government. Well, I want to be part of something good. I'm so committed to this endeavor that I quit my job at the Senate at the end of November so that I could run full-time for the Commonwealth Court. I left my position not because I had to, but because I chose to. I'm traveling more than 5,000 miles every month. I visited all 67 counties before the primary. I only have 16 more to go to do it again before November 7th. I'm working tirelessly to meet the people of Pennsylvania, to hear their concerns, and I'm trying to deliver my message. I want the people of Pennsylvania to know I will be a judge for all the people of Pennsylvania. I will be fair and impartial. I will leave politics out of my courtroom. I will defend our rule of law. I will protect constitutional rights. I will not be an activist. I will not legislate from the bench. I like to say, after spending 10.5 years as a parliamentarian, I know who writes our laws, and it is not the judges. And finally, I am not afraid to hold our government accountable. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be here with all of you today. I humbly ask for your vote on November 7th. I ask you to please follow me on the socials, Megan Martin for PA, and it's really been a delight to be here with all of you, and I thank you so very much for your time today. God bless.
Once again, thank you to all the candidates for coming out. In closing, I do have some people I need to thank myself. First off are my 2 co-chairs of this event, our Democratic co-chair, Attorney Brian Cagle, and our Republican co-chair, Attorney Brian Polito. And they did enlist, apparently, some assistants, Attorneys Noah Erdy and Attorneys Dave Hotchkiss. I also have to thank Diane Adzit, who, along with Judge Mark Stevens, kind of started this whole event back in 2003 and have done it every 2 years since then. Diane Adzit answered all my emails to her, telling me how to set this thing up and how to keep it running. So again, much appreciation to Attorney Adzit. With that said, in closing, what I want to say is really for the viewers at home, make sure you get informed and go out and vote. And that last part's important because you can have the best, most informed opinion in the world, and it doesn't matter if you don't go to the polls or send in a ballot. So please make sure you do that before the November election this year. Thank you.